Hello everyone, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis. Welcome to episode 8 of An Aelfen Adventure. This is probably going to be the last episode, at least for a while. I was hoping to get to 10, but, well, Wargazgul came out and that took off 1 week, and I'll explain a bit later, but basically, there are a few reasons why I'm not going to be able to keep the series going, at least for a bit anyway. The main one being Wargazgul. The other ones being more me-based, but with Wargazgul coming out, I really want to focus on 40k for a bit when I go home. I know all my friends play 40k. The only one out of us who really plays AOS properly is Kieran. So, I think we'll wrap this series up. We'll almost certainly come back to it. I do enjoy doing a hobby series, keeping track of things and talking about gameplay, but just for the moment, I think this is going to be the last episode, and I apologise for that if you've been keeping up with the series. So what we've got to do today is we've got to cover the models, which annoyingly, considering it's in 2 weeks, is basically not enough. And then we've got 2 games to talk about. My last games in the campaign. I think the campaign is going to keep going, but I'm not going to be able to take part in it because at the time you're watching this, I'm not in Manchester. I'm back home for Easter, and I'll be there for a good few weeks, hopefully making some battle reports, but I won't be playing in the campaign, which is the other reason why I'm going to give Aelfen Adventure a bit of a knock on the head. Anyway, that's all the spiel out of the way. So let's get to the models very briefly, and then we'll talk about some games. This is episode 8 for An Aelfen Adventure.
So, here are some models. I have painted a couple more spearmen, but I packed them away now because I'm going home for Easter. So, yeah, I know. I said in episode 7, I was planning to paint 1 archer a day. That did not materialise whatsoever. I haven't even touched them. The main reason for that has been, as I said in episode 7, it's been a bit of a lack of motivation. I'm not using my high elves. I'm not that fussed by my high elves. So I just wasn't feeling like painting them. And on top of that, I've had an exam. In fact, the day I'm recording this, I had an exam earlier today. So I had to prep for that. The tutorial sheets, my homeworks have been getting harder, and so I just haven't been feeling up for painting. I know that's kind of annoying, and it's part of the reason why I'm thinking this series just needs to stop, is just so I can rediscover why I love painting. Because I do now, I really enjoy painting, and this series has really helped my painting abilities as much as anything else. But right now, budget reasons mean I'm not buying any more models, at least for my elves. I've got a Gorkanaut that I'm going to get for my orcs when I go home. I just, yeah, the high elves aren't really grabbing my interest. I'm not getting any new Dark Elves because I painted everything in the last couple of months, or at last 6 months, because I had the whole army. I haven't repainted that. But I have done a little bit. So we have a silver helm, just to show how the colour scheme works on those guys. I did have to take them apart completely. I've gone with a lighter brown steed. Let me just, I'll get my Dark Rider out for a sec. So you can see on the Dark Rider, black steed, really dark muted tones. And while the Silver Helms are not like parodies of the Dark Riders, that's more the Illyrian Reavers, there is no equivalent to Silver Helms in Dark Elves. Not really anyway. So I thought I'll try and paint them in quite bright tones. So they've got a light brown Steel Legion Drab as their horse, with a white mane. This one has a broken tail, so I didn't have it on. It's got the red trim, the blue armor, the white robes, as you would expect with my high elves. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've done a little bit of freehand on the shield as well. I think it's sort of an elven rune that I know, but I don't know it that well. I haven't done the skin, my bad. I've also repainted Helebron. I said it back in episode 1, I wasn't happy with how Helebron looked. And I finally, she snapped, basically, in one of my games, she snapped off the cauldron, perfectly snapped off, so the swords didn't break, her head didn't snap off, just she broke off the cauldron, and I thought that was the best time to repaint her. I also superglued her to a base. The base does stand in the actual cauldron of blood, so I can still put it on the cauldron, and it allows me to interchange the Death Hag in and out. It's less for interchanging the Death Hag, though, it's more to give me the on-foot option for Helebron, because while the cauldron's good, either I'm using it wrong or it's really underperforming. I mean, in the game tonight, it succeeded in doing basically naff all. The blood shield was useless, and it went through about 4 wounds of damage in the whole game before being ripped apart. So it's helpful, but it's not that helpful. And having Hellebron on foot allows me to keep the command ability, which is the main thing that the Cauldron's good for, or Hellebron's good for, and also take 8 wounds out of my army if I need to put some more cavalry in, if I want to have a bit more hero space, then I have that option. In terms of what I've done with Hellebron, I've neatened up the blue, so it was pure light blue before, and now I've gone with darker blue with the edge highlights, kind of just making it look a bit more detailed. I've neatened it up primarily, and I've also done her bra in black with red around the outside, so it's a metal trim just to hold everything up, and then it's got leather in the middle, or something like that anyway. I also repainted her crown to red. I thought about keeping it gold, but red kind of fits better, and it contrasts better with the hair than the gold does. She's still not amazing, but she's better than she was. Anyway, those are the models. We're going to break this next section up, which is the gameplay element, which I talk about the games, into 2. We're going to talk quickly about the game tonight, and then we're going to talk about the game before, because that has more to talk about.
Right, let's talk about tonight's game first. There really isn't that much to say. So I was facing in full Ogre's army. It's the same guy who brought the 2 dragons on me a few weeks ago, if you remember back to episode 6. And he brought a full Ogre army this time. He subbed out all the Dark Elves, including all of mine. And he took 8 Iron Guts, 8 Bulls, a Firebelly, a Butcher, a Tyrant, a Thunder Tusker, Stonehorn, and a Giant. That was his 130 wounds. I had the same army as I did, as I had at the game before, which I'll be talking about in a minute. So it was everything in my collection minus the Witch Elves, Lockheed, and the Death Hag. So I was running the Bloodrat Medusa, I was running the Foot-Mounted Dreadlord sort of as a bodyguard for the Medusa. I had a lore reason as much as anything else. I was running my Dark Riders, full Cold Ones, full Executioners, full Shooting, the usual. And the Cauldron, of course, led by Hellebron. And I made the mistake of allowing him to let us roll off the first turn. I should have just let him go first because I won the roll off. I did all right until one. I mean, I plinked off 3 wounds off an Iron Gut. I shot half the Thunder Tusk with my Bolt Thrower. I had a really good turn with hitting that, which neutered its Ice Breath attack by a lot. The thing hits on 2s and does 6 mortal wounds. It's stupid. So I felt I did all right, but then I realised his Stonehorn. That thing has a 12-inch move and can run and charge. I don't understand. That thing, on average, has a 22-inch hit range. 22! 22! Like, it's almost impossible not to be charged by a Stonehorn on turn 1. How? The thing's literally a rock. It's half rock. The Thunder Tuskies move 8, and I accept move 8. I take move 10. But move 12? 12? Really? Anyway, it slammed into my Executioners and killed 11 of them. The rest ran away to Battle Shock. It was disgusting. It was genuinely disgusting. I had shield on, I had cover, but he charged in, d6 mortal wounds, immediately. Killed another one with his not his Thunder Tusk, with his harpoon. I think his Ice Breath went after my, what did it go after? It did something. I think he just rolled really badly, so it didn't really do any damage. I might have killed 1 or 2. But Stonehorn's charge killed like 5. And then just like it has a rend 3 damage 2 attack, and it just went through my stuff. Like, I had absolutely nothing left. I had 4 left. I took 3 wounds off of it because it halves all incoming wounds, which meant that my 6 doing mortal wounds didn't really do that much. It did 1 instead of 2 because I rolled really terribly. So yeah, that wasn't good. He then got double turn on me. This is why I should have not let him have the roll off. That was my mistake. Because on his double turn, he killed my Bolt Thrower with his Icy Breath attack. He killed my Dark Riders with his Iron Guts. Shadowblade came out, and I did take a 1 Iron Gut down with me, but it wasn't all that good. His Bulls charged my Knights, which were shielded, and never got through them. I was taking probably as many wounds to Iron Fist as I was to his attacks, because I had a rerollable 3-up save. So I wasn't losing that many guys. I don't think I lost a guy to his attacks. I just kept having to take mortal wound damage and then started getting damage from other sources. It it just was an absolute mess. I had turn 2, obviously. My Medusa did a couple of wounds with her shooting attack. My Cauldron tried to charge the Giant, which had also charged the Knights. Rolled a double 1 there, which was great. And despite giving it +1 to wound, everything, it just whiffed. The Knights did work their way through the bulls. There were only 2 left by the end of the game, but I was down to 2 Knights. I did get double turn. I was just doing minor damage, really. I never touched his heroes. I got the Thundertusk down to 1 wound by the end of the game. His Stonehorn was on 8. His Iron Guts were down to 4, but immune to Battle Shock for the entire game. I basically had 2 Knights and 2 Corsairs left, and at that point I just said, I'm done. I had my Dark Shards as well, but he had like half an army left, and I was done. It was that turn 1's charge, followed by double turn. I was just dead. I was dead on turn 2. I kept playing because that was the only sporty thing to do, but we both knew it was over once his Stonehorn killed my Executioners. Because I had absolutely no way to get through his Ogres. I had no damage 2. Especially when my Bolt Thrower went kaput. No damage 2, no mortal wounds, apart from Arcane Bolt, which I wasn't really using because I had to shield my Knights. Yeah, just a really bad game. So that did end in a defeat, of course. He's actually the only guy who beat me on kills. Like the other 2 guys, I do think I beat on like dead stuff, so on stuff remaining and things. So I feel like he was just. I think ogres are just a real problem for my army, and it's not like with my high elves where I have archers who are really accurate, and Sisters of Avalon who are obscene. I just have lots of shots that never hit, and there's no buffs to hit in Dark Elves. Anyway, that was just tonight's game, but there was one other game that we played, and that one has a bit more to talk about within it.
Right, time to talk about a bit more of an interesting match. This one was the week I didn't upload. No, sorry, it's the week before is when I put up episode 6. This was against a Beastmen player. Well, it was more generally a Chaos player, but everything was converted to be Beastmen. And it was a really cool army, I have to say. He was rocking a Maggot Lord, Blobe something. Oh, his mount is spewing a massive like vomit cannonball. I'm sure somebody knows it. He was rocking a Soul Grinder, which was converted with Gorgon parts and looked absolutely awesome. He had 30 Ungor Raiders, a block of Bestigor, a Great Brace Shaman who wasn't running Savage Dominion. He told me he wasn't doing that, which was very nice of him. He had a block of River Trolls. I think he had 6 of them. And a couple of other things, I'm pretty sure, made up the rest of the wounds. Oh yeah, Gorthor the Beast Lord, that was the main thing. I was rocking the same army as I was rocking this week. So Bloodrat Medusa in, Dreadlord in, all Witch Elves and the Death Hang and Lockyer Fellheart were the bits that were out. We thought about playing with like relics and stuff, but neither of us had one, so we just went at it and smashed each other's faces in. I went first, I think. Did I go first? Yeah, I went first and managed to get myself set up pretty well. I got my core ones into some cover with a shield. I got my executioners with a shield and attacked twice because I wanted to play around double turn. Basically, I had a feeling he was going to double turn me, and if he did, I knew my core ones and my executioners were for it, so I wanted to give them as much protection as possible. That's also where I hid the assassins. Shadowblade, of course, was just in the Rave Club, in the Matrix, doing his thing. In my shooting phase, I didn't do that much, really. I just started plinking off wounds from dudes. I think I took a couple of wounds off a troll. I shot a wound off his Soul Grinder. Oh, the other thing he was rocking was 2 Skull Cannons. That's what I forgot. They were both crewed up with Beastmen. 2 Skull Cannons of Khorne, which I was quite worried about, if I'm honest. But my first turn of shooting wasn't that effective. I did a little bit of damage, but the only thing that was in range was the Bolt Thrower, so I didn't expect to do that much. His first turn was ridiculous. His Ungor Raiders, when combined with Gorthor, and his command ability, which is like rerolls of something, or +1 to hit for all Beastmen or Brayherd within a certain range, is just obscene with 30 Ungor Raiders. They were like hitting on 3s or 2s, wounding on 4s, rerolling 1s because they had a ton of dudes, and they wiped out my entire squad of Dark Shards. All 15 of them just died instantly. It was ridiculous. There may be one or two left, but Battle Shock put paid to them pretty quickly because they were like minus 10, 12 bravery. So they were gone and fast. His other shooting wasn't that effective. I think he maybe killed like 2 or 3 executioners with his skull cannon. But he got double turn. I was ready for this and I was worried about this, but he got double turn. At that point, he threw his Bestigor into my Cold One Knights. Tried shooting them, did no damage because basically a re-rollable 2-up save. Actually, no, I didn't shield the Knights. I wasn't able. I missed the casting roll. Sorry, I'm wrong. So it was like almost basically impossible to put a wound on them, and he didn't. But threw the Bestigors in nonetheless, and then threw his Trolls into the execution. Now, what makes River Trolls so good? They are destruction, not chaos, but he was running them, and I checked and I was fine with it. Is that they give out a -1 to hit modifier in melee things that attack them, meaning that my executioners couldn't hit on 6s. They were hitting on 4s, but 6s became 5s. So I couldn't get a 7 to hit, so I couldn't do mortal wounds. Which was basically his anti-executioner plan, was just to drop the River Trolls on them because they can regenerate. And he was hoping that they would just tank the executioners all day. What he didn't count on was how good my executioners actually are without their mortal wounds. Thanks to Hellebrand's command ability and his bad rolling, I went through 3 Trolls. And that caused the rest of them to run off, which got rid of his main anti-executioner threat immediately. And he whiffed with all his attacks as well. He only got 2 into combat to attack, and he just whiffed. He whiffed horribly, which meant all my executioners were left alive. I popped my assassin out, and my next target was Blobe, the Chaos Maggot Lord. The Cold One Knights took the charge like a champ from those Bestigors. It was just ridiculous. Like, throughout the entire game, I killed all his Bestigor by the end of the game, but I had 4 or 5 Knights left standing. Just how? Like, they were in combat with Bestigor for 3-4 rounds, who were hitting on 2s, by the way, because I had a banner and Gorthor's command ability, and they just weren't dying. Like, my re-rolls on my saves were just unstoppable. Even with their rend, I just wasn't dying. I was like, how is this happening? How am I... And because Breathsmen Bravery is pretty bad, I was causing like 3 or 4 casualties with all of my attacks, but that was causing more to run away like every time due to Battle Shock because he wanted Gorthor's command ability primarily for his Ungors. So it was really, really hilarious. I just worked my way slowly through these Bestigors. I popped my other assassin out just to give me a few extra attacks and to tank some wounds. He took 2, I think, during the combat. In my turn, he also killed the Dark Riders with his Soul Grinder. It took him 2 rounds to do it, but at the end of his turn 2, they were dead. In my turn 2, I threw the Executioners and the Assassin at the Maggot Lord and completely wiped him out. I also popped Shadowblade out here at this point. A couple of reasons, really. The first one was to give him something else to shoot at, and the other reason was just to make sure that Maggot Lord went down, because his magic, while he didn't get to cast it, he kept whiffing the casting roll, looked pretty terrifying, so I didn't want it doing anything. I also switched up my game a bit here. I went into sort of area denial. His Soul Grinder was going to mull on my right flank. My Dark Riders were the only big unit over there, and my big killing things were locked up in melee or on a murdering spree in the case of my Executioners. So I backed away my Sorceress, I backed away my Bolt Thrower, and I just said to the Soul Grinder, if you want me, you can come and get me, mate, but you're going to have to do all the running. I shot his Skull Cannon on one of his Skull Cannons down to 4 from its starting count of 8, and just generally started chipping away. I was trying to get into a position to damage the Raiders and get my Medusa into a position to shoot the Bestigor. There were about 10 left once she got into range, but I got to unleash the Medusa's shooting attack, which is something I very, very rarely get to do. And oh my, it went ham. Despite him keeping his eyes flat to the table, I was still able to kill 3 or 4 Bestigor with her shooting attack, which was excellent. That really helped get through them on bravery, because their bravery is like 5 or 6, which is really bad. And I got double turn as well on turn 3. I got double turn. Now, I wasn't able to get to grips with his Ungors, but I was able to get to grips with Gorthor. My Executioners, my Assassin charged the Great Brave Shaman, Shadowblade, and the Executioners made a long charge, hit Gorthor, and completely mullered him. I was down to about 5 Executioners by this point, because they just kept getting pummeled and pummeled and pummeled. but it was really helpful to just chip and chip and chip. And I was down to 5, but his general was dead, his other hero was dead, his trolls were dead. All the executioner's hand just keep adding things to their kill feed. It's ridiculous now. The assassin also dealt with the Bray Shaman in short order with a little bit of help from an executioner who was able to craftily pile around thanks to Hellebrand's command ability. I also got through the Bestigors on this turn, on my turn 3, or on his turn 3, whichever it was. I got through them, ready to go and unleash hell later. My Medusa, I just moved a little bit craftily round the core terrain in the middle, and I left my Dreadlord in sort of an enticing position. I'd shot his skull cannon down to 1 wound, and I was basically saying, you will not get after my snake. I want you to kill my Dreadlord. So I put him in the way of the skull cannon and the soul grinder and said, here's dinner, come and get it. Which he did. I was able to kill the skull cannon though. He went with the soul grinder first. With the skull cannon first, because it was on 1 wound. Didn't kill him. And that allowed the Dreadlord to just pile his 6 attacks on his Exile Blade into the skull cannon and take off the remaining 1 wound. His other skull cannon did charge my Corsairs and didn't do too much this round, but took a wound in return, killed maybe 1 or 2. His soul grinder then demolished the Dreadlord, unsurprisingly. He got double turn back. He got priority on turn 4, and he didn't have much left at this point. He shot my executioners to pieces, and he did a little bit other shooting in places. With his skull cannon, had a go at pinging my Cold One Sorceress, took her down to 3 wounds. He had a go at pinging his other skull cannon was dead, and his soul grinder's shooting, it just kept bouncing off the cold ones in terrain. He then charged the remaining cold ones. I think there were 4 or 6 of them. Maybe it was between 4 and 6, and whiffed. My saves were just on point, and I just refused to die. My cold ones were absolutely amazing. I then retreated with them because we were getting to the point where we needed to pack up the time. So I was like, it's models dying that count, so I'm just going to retreat with my knights. That way, if I get priority turn 5 and we have time for turn 5, I can use them in a charge and maybe do some more damage to the soul grinder, or throw them around at the skull cannon, which was munching through my Corsairs. Or, if he got priority, then he would be forced to charge again, and there was a chance he rolled a double 1 and failed. It was possibly a bit sacrificial, but it worked. I then threw my Cauldron into his skull cannon, left it on 1 wound, and it ate a bunch of Corsairs in return. And then my heroes, so both Assassins, Shadowblade, and the Cold One Sorceress all charged the Ungors. The Bloodrat Medusa shot 9 of them, again just on 6s, but shot 9 of them to death. It was incredible. And then with all the extra attacks, they just ran off due to battle shock. I think I maybe took 1 or 2 wounds in places, but nothing of note really. And then we had to call it for time. If we had gone on, my Cauldron would have almost certainly killed his Skull Cannon, whether I got double turn or not. My Knights versus the Soul Grinder was the only interesting fight, but then he'd have been down to 1 model, and he could only kill 1 unit at a time, and a lot of the stuff I had left was like individual models, like heroes. So I think I would have won, but at that point I was definitely ahead thanks to killing all those Ungor and Vestigor. Like there were like 50 odd of them, which is nearly as many models as I have in my army at the time. I think I had 20, 30, 45. Yeah, I had about 7. I've got like 70 models in the army, maybe tops. So I definitely had him. I really feel like I had him in that game, and I was really happy. I was really shocked as well, because my executioners just went off. Hellebrand was really helpful. The Bolt Thrower was really helpful. The Medusa was excellent, which is something I'm really glad to say. And the Core One Knights, I'm bowing to my Core One Knights right now. They were incredible. So, this is probably, seen as we're at the end of the series, at least for now, a good chance to sit down and talk about the army as a whole. What it does well, what units are strong, what's not so strong, and then maybe just think about what we would do going forward. So let's have a talk.
I'll keep this brief, partly because my camera's going to run out of memory. Anyway, so we're at the end of An Aelfen Adventure, at least for now. And it's time to talk about the Dark Elves, because that's what I've been focusing on in this series, at least up till this point. And, well, I love them. I think Dark Elves, from a lore perspective, are awesome. The models are absolutely incredible. When they redid the Dark Elf range, I was really pleased with the models. They're really easy to paint, easy to build, and on the table, I really enjoy playing them. The Executioners have just wow. Just wow. They were insane in every single game. I don't think they ever really let me down, apart from the one against the Ogres this week and against the Dark Elf Ogre combo the week before. Yeah, I think their problem is just multiple damage weapons just carve through them, and mortal wounds also are an issue for them. One of the units that I was really hyped about that's let me down is everything to do with the Cauldron. Both the Cauldron itself and the Bloodrat Medusa have underperformed. I mean, the Medusa was excellent against the Beastmen, and maybe it's just the armies I was playing against, but she never does that much. She does some stuff, and sometimes it's awesome, but not that much. The Cauldron itself, the Blood Shield is basically useless. Like, as an Orc player, I should know better about 6-up saves. The Witch Elves kind of have underperformed on the whole. Like, sure, they killed the Carnosaur, but they needed 2 bites of the cherry to do it, and were then taken out in short order by a cavalry charge. I think Witch Elves really suffered from the initiative being taken out of the game, because they used to rely on being super fast and then using their poisoned attacks to overwhelm the enemy. But A, they don't get poisoned attacks anymore, and B, they don't have high initiative because initiative doesn't exist. So you've got to pick them first or they die, but you don't want to pick them first because you've got other stuff. So it's a really hard balance to strike. As for Hellebrand, her command ability is amazing. Her command ability is insane. And the Cauldron's +1 to wound is helpful, but it doesn't do that much. I mean, it's 3s and 4s, 6 attacks, 3s and 4s, no rend damage 1, and then from Hellebrand you get 4 attacks, 2 of them are 3s, 3s, 1d3, and 2 of them are 3s, 4s, no damage, no rend damage 1. So you have basically whatever your current attack stat is +2, basically nothing attacks, and then 2 good attacks that never really hit. I've really struggled to hit, and that's the problem with the army. Dark Elves don't get hit bonuses, ever. I think the only hit bonus is a Dark Elf Dreadlord on Dragon. That's it. Nothing else gives you a hit bonus, and that's just rerolls. I mean, rerolls is excellent, but it's only on one guy for one unit. It's bad. And I think all the rerolls to wound is great, but you never do enough hits for that to matter. I think that's the issue the army has. The other thing is monsters. Yes, my executions will fly through any monster they charge, but they're the only thing that can. My core ones are a great anvil. They take hits really well, and with a Bestigo, they can carve through people that were relying on Battle Shock in a lot of cases, and their general damage is 3s, 4s. That's it. 3s, 4s, 3 attacks per guy, no rend damage 1. Really? That's piss poor. That's really bad. I mean, 3 attacks per do 3s, 4s. Yeah, sure. But you're never really going to do that much to anything with a good save. I mean, yes, they'll go through stuff, but not that quickly. Also, I think shooting is probably one of the stronger elements of the army, but it's not good enough because everything hits on 5s. Again, your hit rolls are the problem here. I would almost want Dark Elf archers who hit on 4s. Honestly, I will take a 4s and 4s shooting unit with less attacks than a 5s and 4s because I can't roll a 5+ unless I'm an Orc player. I should be better at it, but I just can't. So I think it would be nice to have more shooting options that actually can hit rather than just relying on volume of shots, because back then, crossbows were better. Crossbows were good, but now bows are probably just as viable, and so if I were to mix it up with my highs and darks, archers would probably be one of the first things. And Sisters of Avalon, there is no Sisters of Avalon equivalent, and it misses them. Like a really high power shooting unit. Yes, you have Shades, but they're designed to counter Shadow Warriors. There's nothing to fit the Sisters, which is kind of a shame. I think the Dark Elves are better than the High Elves. Maybe that's just because I feel like I've used them a bit more now, but I feel like I get more out of a Dark Elf army than I do a High Elf one. More reliable anyway, at times. And I do like the army. I really, really do. I just think it has a few issues. Primarily its hit rolls, and secondly its ability to kill big things. You have Scourge Runner Chariots, your own monsters, and your Executioners. And that's it. Nothing else is really damage 2. Your War Machines on a 6 to wound are damage 2. You have no option for a single bolt that's damage D3 like a repeater bolt thrower does. You just get the extra damage sometimes when you roll to wound. So I do think there are some weaknesses that would need to be addressed. If I were to add to the army, I would need a monster. Honestly, monsters are the big issue right now, and I need something to counter them, and I need something to counter big heroes. Um, my executioners are great, but there's only one unit of them, and I need them at that size to guarantee the mortal wounds I need to bring enemies down. So a War Hydra would be really good. It adds another hammer and anvil to the army because it regenerates really fast, it has a lot of damage output, and I do think it would be really helpful to have in the army. A few basic infantry wouldn't hurt. I had a discussion with a guy a couple of weeks ago about basic infantry, and he seems to like them more than I do. I don't think basic infantry have that much worth, but at the same time, they're cool and they're thematic, and if you can get a lot of them, they are pretty effective. So I think it's not too bad. Magic's okay. My magic's okay. An extra sorceress wouldn't hurt. Maybe take out an assassin, put in a second sorceress on foot. So I have 3 magic users because Hellebrand can dispel, but she can't cast. So maybe that would work. And I do think the Witch Elves, while I wanted to create a cool thematic thing, it would just make the executioners more obscene and make the Witch Elves at least maybe viable. But you need probably 30 of them, and that's a lot of money to put down. Never mind wound count. It's 30 fragile wounds and a lot of money to invest, and I just don't want to do that right now. So I should probably now explain why I'm sort of stopping this series here. 1, I'm going home. I'm not going to be going to GW, I'm not going to be buying models because the hobby store at home doesn't have as many models available, and it won't be the models that I want. 2, 40k. Wild Guys School is out, and I want to use it a lot. I'll have less chance to play AOS there as well, because the only real person I can play is Kieran. Everyone a large size game. So I think that's another reason. The other thing is motivation and money. I haven't got the motivation to do my High Elves. I haven't got the money to get more Dark Elves. So that's kind of why we're stopping the series here. I do hope you have enjoyed this series. I know I have, and it's been an absolute pleasure to show you my army as it develops and sort of look back and see how I've developed as a painter, as a gamer. I think this is a really awesome idea as a series, and I hope to come back to it. I think there will probably be an Elfen Adventure Season 2. Maybe not for a long time. Maybe not till like next university year, like in September, when I can get back here and invest in a Hydra, but it really depends on how I'm feeling about 40k versus AOS at the time. If I'm in an AOS mode, I'll restart this series. If not, I'll probably just keep working on my orcs. We shall have to see, I'm afraid. But if you would like me to continue this series or start a new hobby project with my orcs, do feel free to let me know. My budget is a bit low at the moment, at least for hobby. Like, I've got enough to live on and I've got enough spare, but I don't want to put a load of money into hobby at the moment just for budget reasons. So do feel free to let me know what you thought of the series, any suggestions that if we come back and do a season 2 that you would improve upon. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So thank you very, very much for watching this series of An Aelfen Adventure. I do hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. And I look forward to seeing what else we can do. And of course, if there are any games of AOS that I play at home with my Dark Elves, I will bring it to you in the form of a battle report. So look out for those. For now, though, this is the end. It's a fond farewell, but it's a farewell nonetheless. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I, along with Hellebrand and my other Dark Elves, will see you all again. Bye for now.